Greetings. Oh, that's fine too. I need to clean those glasses, don't I? So, link down below this article from the Electronic Intifada. Highly rate that website in general. Really great news and analysis, particularly what's going on with the apartheid state of Israel as they continue their genocidal campaign against the Palestinians, particularly in Gaza, obviously. In this article that they had detailed how the Zionist state of Israel are using the same strategy that was used during World War II by the so-called Allied powers of carpet bombing, civilian areas in Germany, like Dresden, or even modeling it after the U.S. and how they dropped atomic bombs on Japan, Hiroshima, and Nagasaki during World War II. Obviously, the carpet bombing of Dresden, targeting civilians, is a war crime, right? Obviously, the dropping of the nuclear bombs on Japan by the U.S. was also a war crime and completely unnecessary, and the war would have obviously ended without that happening. And this is the same model, the same logic that Israel, the Zionist state of Israel, is using right now, and you see it being played out time and time again, where they just destroy whole blocks, level apartment buildings, houses to the ground, killing hundreds. They bombed the Jabalia refugee camp yesterday, killing at least 400 people, probably more, to target a supposed Hamas military commander. And also, really that strategy, it's the strategy of a coward. If their real target was that Hamas military commander, send ground troops in, send ground forces in. Obviously, that's still not justified. I don't support that, but it shows how cowardly the Israeli military, the government, the Zionist state is, going after a defenseless population who doesn't have an air force, whose air defense is pretty minimal, right, compared to the weapons that are being leveled against them by Israel, provided by the U.S. And in this article, again, that's linked down below in the description, details how almost every day the U.S. is sending weapons shipments over to Israel, and how the U.S. government isn't going to place any type of restrictions or caveats on how they can be used. And the Biden administration is still not calling for a ceasefire after 8,000 plus Palestinians in Gaza have been murdered in less than a month by this carpet bombing campaign. Again, another war crime, right? And almost half of them children. And again, these are just numbers that I'm stating, but these are lives snuffed out, right? There's their children, their mothers, their fathers, their brothers, their sisters, their aunts, their cousins, their uncles, and each had their own unique history and life that they're living in this concentration camp that's becoming a extermination camp, that is Gaza. But again, back to the cowardice point, it really shows, the military who only bombs from above, targeting civilians, bombing hospitals, refugee camps, apartment buildings, bombing ambulances, targeting media and their families, shows really that they're cowards, right? If they had any type of moral backbone or any type of courage, it wouldn't be happening. But they are willing to commit genocide to further this Zionist project. And again, one of the huge reasons they're able to get away with committing this continued genocide against the Palestinians. We see the genocidal intent with the language that has been used by Israeli officials, both in the government and in the military. So they have the genocidal intent, and then you have these actions, right? So it's definitely, there's no question that they're committing a genocide right now. And again, they're able to get away with doing this because they have the full support of another settler colonial state, the U.S., who's sends almost $4 billion in military aid a year, and now Biden is asking for 14 more billion. As Tupac said, we have money for war, but not for the poor. To paraphrase, it might have been to feed the poor, but you get the idea. But also you see really high levels of solidarity being shown towards the Palestinians in their freedom struggle. So many protests happening all over the U.S., all over the world. You saw at the, I believe it was the Senate hearing yesterday, those Code Pink and the other activists interrupting Anthony Blinken's speech. You saw John Fetterman, that Zionist apologist, Zionist defender, senator from Pennsylvania, being confronted and asked about, why don't you support a ceasefire? All these people are dying, half of them children. And then the direct actions against, Elbit Systems, one of the big supplier of arms and military stuff towards Israel, the direct action towards them in the U.S. and Massachusetts, as well as in England, the U.K., and other countries. So, so it's pretty nuts. And then you also have, I'm going to do a separate video about this, but might as well just talk about it here. The White House's press secretary, I believe their name is Karine Jean-Pierre, was asked a question by a Fox News reporter. What do you think these protesters, this is, not what they said, but, these protesters speaking up about, speaking out against the genocide happening against the Palestinians, are they extremists? That would be like if it was an Onion thing. And she compared the people standing up in solidarity with the Palestinians to the white supremacists who marched in Charlottesville, I believe, back in 2017. God damn, that's pretty fucking Orwellian, right? Pretty nuts. Also really shows how ineffective the international law is, in a sense. Israel is committing war crimes, violating all of these international laws, committing crimes against humanity. But what's going to stop them from doing that, right? It's going to be because the international community on a human rights level and a enforcement of those human rights level is so ineffective in doing that, it's going to come through armed struggle. That's why you had, he was a military leader from Yemen saying that they are going to join the fight to help out their, help out the Palestinians in their freedom struggle as this genocide is being committed against them. And again, right, it's no wonder why these, armed resistance groups, whether it's in Gaza or the other occupied territories, would have such high support among the population, whether it be, Hamas or any other, faction that is, resisting the occupation, resisting apartheid, resisting these genocidal efforts on the part of the settler colonial apartheid state, so-called state of Israel, right? is because nobody else is coming to help them. The UN's doing fuck all to support a ceasefire or to put troops on the ground so that this genocide doesn't happen. So the resistance has to come from these other elements, Hamas et al. So it's no wonder why they have support, because they're the only ones standing up, literally putting their lives on the line, and fighting back. So makes total sense. And I just got a book yesterday about the origins and kind of history of Hamas, which will be really interesting to read and give some feedback and videos on that. But anyways, bit of a ramble. But again, yeah, the so-called state of Israel is modeling their military tactics on the war crimes that the U.S. and the Allies committed during World War II, carpet bombing of Germany, I believe Dresden in particular, and then how the U.S. dropped atomic bombs on Japan in Hiroshima and Nagasaki. I mean, think about that. But the U.S. is okay with it. They're not putting any stipulations on how those weapons should be used. If I get war crime away, genocide in Biden, we're on board. Insane. Money printer go for the war machine. Duopoly always supports that, but anything that could materially improve the lives of people here or abroad, how are we going to pay for it? What about the deficit? But money printer go for the goddamn war machine, right? Anyways, hope this finds you well. All power to the people. From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free.